Motorhead Garage, the program that each week introduces you to and shows you how to install the latest in exciting and innovative products for your vehicle. Now here's your host, Dave Dobson.
Thanks for joining us here at Motorhead Garage, presented by DragonfireTools.com. UTVs like this, they call them side-by-sides, come from the dealership with all kinds of things ready to hit the trail. You've got the big tires, you got the bull bar on the front, and a giant windshield so you can see out the front. But Keith, the windshield, it helps you while you're driving it, but it can be kind of an Achilles heel of these things. How so?
Well, first of all, if you have this thing on a trailer and you're bringing it to your destination, you have dirt, rocks, any kind of projectiles that could break or make it dirty. So what's the first thing you do when you have to get on the trail then?
You clean it. That's the first thing you do after you get off the trail too.
Exactly, right? So even if it's a Lexan or glass, anything you have to do, you're cleaning that windshield. Now, a couple things with that. Now you're scratching it up, and well, you're lowering the life of that windshield.
And you especially see that with the Lexan. You get the swirl marks on
100%.
it, and you're trying to drive through the sunset, and it could be actually a safety hazard when you're out there as well. And a broken windshield, of course, is a safety hazard as well.
And they're not cheap.
So what kind of insurance policy can I have against a broken windshield on a side-by-side like this?
Well, that's why we put together a windshield cover that goes on here. So,
and this is called the Fit to Ride.
Fit to Ride.
It's your invention.
That's correct.
Yeah, so what inspired this?
So I actually needed something for mine. I have a Maverick X3. So what I did is I was using it on the oil and gas industry, going up and down the mountain. And what we did then is we used like a rock guard, like something that we use in the facility. And what had happened was I had a whole bunch of people ask me where they can get it. And eventually I was like, well, if there's a lot of market, like there's a lot of people are asking for this. So I went and I did a bunch of deep dives in the patenting to see if anybody else had anything else out there. I looked for it everywhere and I couldn't find it. And then I was like, okay, well, let's go for it. So you're seeing it now from a necessity that I had on the side of a mountain. And this is where it starts, right here. So what we have is we have 160-pound pull force magnets. These are actually built right into the cover. They're directional. So one side, it has very little magnetism. The other side is 160-pound pull force. Then the other one goes on the inside of the window. And then when you have these two together,
here, let me see that. There's no way those are coming apart.
No.
So, and that's how they're installed with 8 of these. So let's take a look
correct.
at how it actually installs then. We've got our magnets sitting on the dash here. We'll position this in the right spot. Super easy. You can do it yourself. You can do it with a buddy. We've got the magnets marked here with some tape here, or some stickers.
yeah, the glow-in-the-dark sticker really helps stand out, especially for some of the people that have tinted windows or anything like that. Those glow-in-the-dark stickers stand out really well.
Excellent. And there it is. One more to go. And this thing is not going anywhere. This is going to stay on at high speed down the highway.
That's what I mean. Remember I was telling you, like you can move this thing? And they're not even, we didn't even take the double-sided tape off yet. That's just a dry fit. And the reason we do a dry fit is because you can then come outside, like we didn't actually take that off yet, but we did position it. The reason for that is now you can come out here, make sure that it's exactly where you want it, because it'll move. And when that's all said and done, the hard part then is just going in there and taking that red tape off there. That's the hardest part of this operation.
Now, of course, we know this works. It's great for side-by-sides and vehicles like this. What are some of the other applications you're finding that folks are using it for?
So our RV, a recreational travel trailer, fifth wheels, flying off the shelf. So a lot of those newer travel trailers or RVs, they have the big window up front, which are great, except if you hit a rock. Especially if you left your house 5 minutes down the road in your family vacation that you've been planning for 6 months. That ended your vacation real fast. With the fit cover put on there, the magnets on there, and the dynamic pressure that holds it on there, it doesn't go anywhere. And you've just secured your vacation with your family. And it's a peace of mind.
We know we've got 8 sets of magnets on here, so we know we can't pull this thing off. And you've got the dynamic pressure when you're going down the road of the wind hitting this thing.
Yeah.
Is there a chance of this thing blowing off?
No, not at all. Yeah, the dynamic force on this alone with your wind pressure is 285 pounds. Then combined with the magnets, you're at another 320, you're at 605 pounds. Holding this thing right in place at 62 miles an hour. It's not going anywhere.
Fit to Ride is the website. Fit, the number 2 rides, where you can find these made specifically for your vehicle. It's going to keep the chips down, and of course it's going to keep it clean so you don't get those swirl marks when you're cleaning it. fit2ride.com. We'll be right back with more Motorhead Garage presented by DragonfireTools.com, so stay tuned.
Motorhead Garage, presented by DragonfireTools.com, is brought to you by Amsoil, the first in synthetics, Campbell's Custom Care, your detail specialist, and by DragonfireTools.com, industrial workbenches with integrated tool storage.
Motorhead Garage is presented by DragonfireTools.com. 1970, the year this Camaro was made, the space race was at its peak. We had just slam dunked on the Soviets by landing on the moon. Technology was marching quicker than ever, and that was true for the automotive industry as well. Of course, in car audio, the latest and greatest included the cassette player and the 8-track player. And look, it's great to have a survivor car or an awesome restoration, but you don't want the sound of a 1970s stereo playing an 8-track through a little speaker on the dash. Are you kidding me? You've got a couple of options if you want to upgrade the stereo in an old car. One, you can get a new universal type stereo, and we've seen all kinds of those in classic cars. Tons of lit up buttons and a big digital display, and to be honest, it just doesn't look right there on the dash. You've got another option though, and it's a good one. It's a radio from Custom Autosound. You get a radio that looks just like the original from when your car came off the assembly line, but the technology inside is a 21st century state-of-the-art piece of work. Now, first of all, I mentioned the sound you get from the old radios and the speakers that you had in those cars back in the 70s. Custom Autosound. The sound is in their name, and they take it seriously. You're getting a high-quality system that's made in some of the same factories that make the biggest name brands in high-end aftermarket audio. And it starts with the radio itself, of course. And the one we put in this 1970 Camaro, it's the USA 630. It has 300 watts of peak power. That'll be plenty of power for anyone looking to replace their original system. And speakers. Now you can have more than just that little dash speaker I talked about. Custom Autosound makes speakers that fit the look of your vehicle, or they hide away where you can't even see them. You can get a modern speaker that replaces that crummy dashboard speaker that came with your car 50 years ago. Plus, there's a huge variety of high-quality speakers and speaker packages to place wherever you want them in the car. A lot of folks just love the kick panel speakers, and Custom Autosound makes them specifically for your make and model of vehicle. Hundreds of applications, so they will fit perfectly. And if you really want to stay true to your car's vintage looks, or you just don't have the space, then take a look at Custom Autosound's undercover speakers. You can hide them under or behind your seats, or even under the dash in some cases, and the quality is there. Lots of power, high-end tweeters and mid-range speakers. Your tunes will sound great. When people look at a classic car like this 1970 Camaro, they pay attention to details. If it's a survivor, folks want to see how it was done back in the old days. And if it's a restoration, they want to see if you got everything right. And Custom Autosound pays a ton of attention to the smallest things, just like you do. They have hundreds of applications, which means the radio you buy is made to fit your specific year, make, and model. I mentioned this is the USA 630. We love this unit. All the finer points are covered. It's got the analog look. It's got knobs that look like the original. The preset buttons look just like they did back in the old days. For a lot of vehicles like this one, a bezel or trim piece with a logo for your specific make of car, it is a great look, and it's a chance to show your loyalties to, in this case, to Chevrolet. But don't let the vintage looks fool you. A radio from Custom Autosound is one of the most capable aftermarket radios you can buy. I've mentioned the high quality sound, but the best thing about one of their radios is the modern features you get. You get Bluetooth, so you can talk on the phone, but still shift gears and hang onto the wheel and stay legal in lots of states these days. Satellite radio capabilities, so you can get reception just about anywhere if you've got satellite radio. You've also got a connection for your phone or your MP3 player, so you can bring your favorite playlist with you. And there's lots of preamp output, so you can build and control your entire system from the driver's seat. A Custom Autosound radio is going to look great, it's going to sound great, and it is going to last. You probably wait for the warmer weather to drive your classic car or street rod. That means hot summer sun. Well, every Custom Autosound model undergoes a temperature aging test and extreme temperature testing as well. Also, classic cars and souped up muscle cars make a lot of power. That's what's great about them. That also means a ton of vibration, and you'll need a radio that's going to survive those conditions. So every model from Custom Autosound goes through an extensive vibration test. And before it leaves the factory, Every custom Autosound radio is hand inspected and adjusted by a technician before it is shipped to you. Your custom Autosound radio arrives with everything you need to install it, and installation is a walk in the cake. Custom Autosound makes everything really simple. Every connection, every single wire is color-coded and labeled. Wiring harnesses to aux cables, to the power and speaker cables, and even the wire for your power antenna if you have one on your car. Before you do anything, of course, you should disconnect your car's battery just like you should when you're working on anything involving the electrical system. And it takes a little studying and a little trial and error to fit the radio unit in your vehicle, but take your time. With this Camaro, we had to remove the center console and get it up in that way, so it was a little more complicated than some. We find a lot of models actually just come up through the dash or go through the glove compartment. We recommend doing a test fit just like our man Scott did. And once you've done that, make sure you connect both wiring harnesses. They are color-coded. All the wires are color-coded and labeled too. And once you have the unit in place with the posts through the dash, secure it with the nuts that are included in the box. Custom Autosound also includes plenty of washers to help you hold the unit in place or give you more space if you need it. You put the knobs on and you're ready to cruise in style. You'll have great sounding music. You'll have Bluetooth. You'll be able to play from your phone or your MP3 player. You'll have satellite radio capabilities, and you can even hook up an optional CD player. Every custom Autosound radio comes with a 2-year warranty, free shipping to the lower 48 states for any order over $100, and outstanding customer support. Turn to Custom Autosound to find a stereo made to fit your specific make and model, or if you're building a street rod or a rat rod or something like that, you can also find a universal radio and universal speakers to fit your needs, your style, and your budget. Go to customautosound.com and they will hook you up. And we're going to hook you up with more great products like this when we come back, because there's more Motorhead Garage presented by DragonfireTools.com still to come.
Motorhead Garage, presented by DragonfireTools.com, coming to you from the Campbell's Custom Care Studio.
Now this oil pump, it's the heart of the oiling system. If it fails, well, quite frankly, no oil pressure, no engine, kaboom, you're done. Welcome to this Amsoil Tech Tip. We're talking about oil pumps. Now there's different types of oil pumps, but first off, let's start out with what they do. Oil pumps located into the bottom there. It's picking up the oil and developing oil pressure. So what it's doing, it's sending it through all the oil galleries and it's oiling all the bearings or everything and the moving parts in that engine. It has to lubricate. You can see them here. You got the gear type, you got the rotor type, and you got a crescent type. There's different types, but even better yet, I can give you a look inside. So if you look at this one right here, this is actually a rotor type pump. This is pretty cool, and it spins around. And when it spins around, the oil has to go inside of there in a big gap, and then it gets pressurized into the small gap and it exits. If you're an old school guy, like we are, Len, you actually got this one here with the gears. You're just kind of pumping it around. A lot of 350s, a lot of engines use these, developing pressure. But man, I see some pressure points, I see some shear. You're gonna have to have some good oil to work with these oil pumps.
Right, oil pumps work extremely well for everything that you described, but the problem is that they're tough on oil just naturally by the way they're designed. There is chopping action happening in there. So if you were to take a cleaver, if you will, to the oil molecule and chop it up, that makes your 30 weight into a 20 weight and so forth. Pretty soon you don't have any protection. So you have to build the oil strong enough to handle that. And we do that starting with the very building blocks of the product. The base oil itself has to be very tough. It has to be put in at the right amounts. It's a well-rounded product that'll handle those shearing forces inside that pump and still provide good oil pressure.
And not to mention the heat, that can change the viscosity of the fluid. We are developing heat in here as well.
That's correct. This will get hot. Just pumping the oil generates heat, so the oil has to be able to deal with it.
Well, you better believe your engine has an oil pump and you need that oil pressure. So make sure you're using a quality oil like Amsoil. Go to the website at amsoil.com.
This is usually the part of the show where I tell you about the paintedautoparts.com Motorhead of the Week, but Mike Raddick of Akron, Ohio was kind enough to send us a video, so I'll let Mike introduce himself.
My name is Mike Raddick. I've been a local police officer for the last 17 years. Been really interested in cars since I was a young boy. Bought my first Porsche when I was 20 years old and got into doing track days. From there, I worked up to be an instructor for the PCA, Auto Interest, and I also do other track events for other organizations. On the weekends, I'll have the kids and family come out and give them rides around on the track. hopefully one day I can actually talk one of my kids and they come out on a track and I can instruct them and they can be a student. That's me in a nutshell.
If you want to be like Mike, just send us a note at motorheadgarage.tv. Tell us why you or someone you know should be our paintedautoparts.com Motorhead of the Week. We'll return right after this with more Motorhead Garage presented by DragonfireTools.com, so stay tuned.
Motorhead Garage, presented by DragonfireTools.com. Industrial workbenches with integrated tool storage. And brought to you by PaintedAutoBodyParts.com, the leading U.S. auto body parts online store. Tribotex, make your engine last longer. And by Shock Therapy, ride your way.
All right, I've got one for you. A nuclear scientist, a college instructor, and a defense contractor walk into a television studio. All right, it's not a joke, it actually just happened. This is Pasha Rudenko, and he is with Tribotex. It's something you're gonna love. Tell us what it is.
So Tribotex, it's a result of my PhD work at Washington State University that based on nanotechnology, and we call it dumbest possible artificial intelligence. Let me break it down for you. If you would say in the future had a nanobot and you would tell that nanobot to go swim in the engine and fix, let's say, play in the bearing, what the nanobot would do? It would grab a small amount of material, swim into the engine, attach it to a surface, swim back and repeat, right? We did exactly just that, but with as little of intelligence as possible. Let me explain how it is. So we made flat nanoparticles that have chemically and functionally different sides. One side is sticky and another is slippery. So when the nanoparticles attach to the surface, they only attach by sticky side and expose slippery side. So sticky side reinforces the surface and strengthen it, and slippery side protect it from the future damage. And interestingly enough, when many of those particles attach particle by particle, they go into attach in random pattern, forming porous structure. And that porous structure is thick enough to compensate for the wear that was accumulated for decades of the functioning of the mechanism. So we used that technology and simplified it for the everyday consumer to be used in engines, gearboxes, power steering pumps, rear differentials, front differentials, all kinds of the mechanisms that are lubricated by regular lubricants that over time wear out, that need some attention. That is what we brought.
Now, when you set out to do this, you weren't setting out to research engines and that sort of thing. How did you discover this technology?
We went into a completely different thing. We started from the hip implants, and then we learned that industrial applications would be really good, wind turbines, space applications. Essentially, NASA just recently put a wonderful article about us in the spin-off magazine. And we thought for the long time that this technology is going to be just too expensive for the regular consumer to really use it. You know, nanomaterial is expensive to make. You need substantial quantity to really show the difference. So we went and asked several government agencies, would you be interested in us bringing this technology to the market? And National Science Foundation funded us to build the production capacity. And after that, you know, we had a lot of material, but we didn't have customers. So we decided, how are we gonna bring it to the market? We put it on Kickstarter, then on Indiegogo, blow out our initial goals, and then Amazon, eBay. Now we bring it to retailers. So we just happy with the results.
All right, so the Air Force uses Tribotex, and big industry uses this. What can Tribotex do for me on my little car at home?
Every car over time wears out, and spherical bearings become elliptical at times. So you get little play and you hear it as an extra noise. So when this noise happens, the more particles can deliver it into that little gap, and they build a layer particle by particle, so your bearings effectively shrink. So you rebuild engine without disassembly, just with the syringe of Tribotex. That's one part of it. But that coating is not just thick and protective. It is also more lubricious than the material was before, so the bearing become more efficient. That reduces heat and reduces a little bit fuel consumption. Overall, those benefits are very useful for everyone who can keep their car longer and retain efficiency over long term.
How quickly am I going to notice the results once I put Tribotex
That's a
in?
very good question. The first difference in noise you will hear about 15 minutes in, and we want you to wait for those 15 minutes so the material get dispersed over time pretty well. But the real benefits happens when the cylinders and rings get coated, and this is just slow splash lubrication within the motor, so it takes longer. It takes about 10 motor hours, and we call it about 500 miles. So when those got coated, then you start realizing benefits of better fuel consumption and lower heat rejection into coolant. So the temperature of engine goes down again by a little bit.
If you want to see more, you can check them out on their website at Tribotex.com. We are finished with this episode of Motorhead Garage presented by DragonfireTools.com, but do not fret. We're going to be back next week with more great products for your vehicle. In the meantime, check us out on social media and see what we're up to. From our entire crew here at Motorhead Garage, we will see you next time. Drive safely.